Hello, welcome to the Doug Show Live. Today we're going to talk about content sites in 2024, and it's going to be a casual day. I'll let everyone know it'll be a casual day. Let me know if you could hear me in the chat out there. For the people that care, I have switched over to an XLR cable from the USB that was plugged in here. I think I broke the original cable. So I was like, I have a little interface. We'll give it a shot and make sure it works. Let me know if you could hear me all right. I think I might be able to bump up the volume just a little bit, which I think I might need to do, but do let me know out there. Marcus is on. What's happening? Thanks for joining in here. And yes, I can zip the volume up just a little bit. And I think that's probably a little bit better there. So let me know out there. Like I said, I'm dialing it in with a different interface. Yeah, so we are talking about the state of the industry, more or less. And part of it is because I just published an interview with Kristen, and she had a site making about $25,000 per month. She has been running the site for years. She had a podcast, a YouTube channel. She was doing everything right, yet her site was still hit with a helpful content update. So she is trying to figure it out. And because she was earning so much money, it's really important for her to figure out that problem and actually recover the site. So she's getting some traction, but at the same time, it's still, number one, a huge amount of work from something that she seemed to be doing basically right initially. So it's tough out there. It's tough. And a lot of other folks got hit as well. And the thing is, I could see, not only are a lot of people watching that video, they're watching a longer portion of that video. I knew it was going to be an important one to publish because there are many, many people that have been hit by the recent updates. And these stories are really common, but they're not very popular for influencers or YouTubers or podcasters or whatever to cover. So these conversations are probably happening out in maybe Facebook groups, forums, or other places that I actually don't hang out in very often. So the thing that was so important is like the story is common, but people don't hear about it. There's a lot of other people in your shoes. So we'll just kind of talk to see what everyone's working on, what questions you have. And we have Art of Shred, what's going on? Garav, what's happening? Build the niche site as well. Duke's here, what's going on? And Marcus says, how are your websites doing, Doug? Generally the same as they were. They've kind of been on a little bit of a decline, but the one site that I was spending more time on in the last couple of years, it has just been sort of on a gentle decline in around, I would say last fall or so. I stopped publishing new content. I stopped improving old content since all of my efforts were basically providing zero ROI in that particular niche. So I was like, okay, it's time to take a pause here. Improving old content didn't help at all, at least the way that I was improving that old content. So things are the same as they were. Kind of, at one point they'd reached a plateau and they kind of went on a little decline. No major hits from the recent updates though. All right. One interesting thing, I have been publishing a little bit more over on the community tab in YouTube. As some of you know, I don't spend much time or any time at all on Twitter. Very little. Occasionally I have to pop over there for some work-related thing. And then I try not to get sucked in, like many social media platforms. The endless scroll does suck you in. And I try to get out of there once I catch myself. So anyway, I've been publishing a little bit on the community tab, kind of stuff that would potentially fit on Twitter, but I like to focus my efforts in one area. I I don't feel good after I go to Twitter, basically. And it's been interesting. Polls seem to work pretty well. They get more interaction for sure. And one of the questions that I asked out there was, what are you working on in 2024? About 60% of the folks that replied back out of 157 niche or authority sites. So about 60% of y'all are still working on that. 23% are working on YouTube. Amazon influencer is still very low, that only at 4%. So I would say that's still a pretty open area to check out. I know a lot of people are finding a good deal of success there. A lot of the same skills. And I think, there are a couple courses out there too. We have Etsy, only 3% of people that responded are working on Etsy, and about 11% on courses or digital products. So there's still a ton of opportunity, I would say, overall. So Build the Niche site asked about the podcast bootcamp. It's going awesome. So really enjoy that, getting a lot of good content. Only a few people popped in, which is perfect because it's part bootcamp, part mastermind group. So the accountability is excellent. I think everyone's going to be launching a show. I'm launching a new show, by the way. And yeah, super fun. And I kind of know the folks in it from past experience. A couple of people are my personal friends anyway. So anyway, it's been really fun. And then some other folks that I've met like more recently. So yeah, really awesome. And we'll all be able to cross promote and help each other out. A lot of people wanted to do the boot camp, but they didn't have the time when I was launching it. And they're like, are you doing one in a few months? I want to do it in a few months. So stand by. There may be another cohort coming through. All right. And Susan says, speak to Shauna. I bet her PBNs are still working fine. Actually, Shauna is scheduled for an update in... I can't remember. I think it might be next week I'm talking to her. So the episode will come out in a few weeks here. All right. Marcus says, Twitter is going downhill, especially here in the Netherlands. A lot of people are leaving it now. It's interesting. Like the people that are saying that I should have been on Twitter for a while and all that stuff, they're all, actually all of them are like bloggers or YouTubers, or they have some other platform. And I think they're actually getting a good amount of traction from Twitter. But when I hop over there, usually my impression is this is a short version of something more interesting. And there are longer posts or there are threads or whatever. And I would say, if you like whatever social media you like, that is the best one for you to spend time on. So for me, it doesn't work that well. And I'm attempting to publish a little bit more on the community tab with the hopes that YouTube is trying to get people to interact more with the community tab, so they will literally prioritize it a little bit more. I think probably I heard some YouTuber predict that might happen, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. So we'll see how it goes. The other thing is I'm not putting too much pressure on myself. I'm not putting any pressure on myself. I'm like, all right, this could be a decent idea. Why don't I make this a little bit shorter? One thing I tested, and y'all could go like check this out and see. Some of them I'm like asking for a little help. There's one I'm looking at that is a few sentences long, pretty brief. One of them is a poll. One of them is basically what could be a very short blog post. It's probably only a few hundred words. There's no transitions. It's just like bullet points with some details. there's actually enough information in there that someone could find it helpful. It was a little on the long side. I'm not really sure how well it's going to work. And then I published one earlier today, which is more of a tweet. It's just like pretty short. And I think that might work pretty well. I'm going to give it a shot. The image that I use there, people could check it out. But the image that I use there is from Midjourney. And I like using Midjourney. It's kind of fun. I don't mess around too much. I'm not trying to make it perfect. You can see the image is, it kind of makes sense if you're scrolling fast, which I assume. I mean, people are scrolling fast. They're not really paying much attention. So, yeah, I think that could work okay. I'll probably toss in a couple videos. And my buddy Jason, he sent me an email because one of my recent videos, I think I published it over the weekend. I published it in black and white for an artsy effect. And I'll explain why in a second. It was intentional, and he was giving me the heads up. He was like, hey, man, and he watches these. So thanks, Jason, for giving me the heads up. But basically, he was like, it looks like maybe you didn't mean to publish it in black and white, because I usually don't do that. I think there might be like one or two other videos where I've done that. And I literally was just doing it to copy a YouTuber that I enjoy. His name is Daniel Milner. He's out of the Santa Fe area. He's a photographer. And I like his sort of dry and sarcastic humor. He seems like he doesn't give a fuck, which I like that as well. He's like doing his own thing. And I think there are some videos where he essentially says he's creating the content that he wants. I say this kind of stuff, right? The content that he wants, he's not playing along for the algorithm. He's just doing his thing, and he has some stuff to share. And he's a great documentary photographer. Yeah. So, and just a photographer in general. I think he's done a lot of different work. Anyway, I like his channel. He publishes most of his videos in black and white, but not all of them. Occasionally he'll throw some color in there. There was one the other day, and it was like the Wizard of Oz, right? Black and white in the beginning, and color at the end. So anyway, he has been publishing some YouTube shorts. I was surprised, because he seems like the kind of dude who wouldn't do short form video, but they fit his brand perfectly, and they're always a little bit funny, and I enjoy them. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll give shorts a try again and just do it my way. I have played around with the shorts for several months on 2 different channels, and it didn't pan out, which I'll come back to in a minute, which I'll actually write down, because I tend to forget stuff when I'm going to look at the chat here in a second. So I need to talk about YouTube shorts. And let's get to the chat. Thanks for participating out there. Please ask questions. Would love to talk about it. Whatever you want out there. All right. Okay, Art of Shred tells me that the Amazon Influencer Program, he says, it seems difficult to get into the program. I've got over 3,000 subs and have been denied. Does anyone know how many subs? It may already be in the chat. I don't know what you need, but I guess I didn't realize how many you needed. I bet they're raising the threshold as there's more interest out there. So Garav says, PBNs still work. I thought it was dead back in 2018 to 19. Currently, I guest post work that 2 traffic ones. Yeah, I would say, I haven't researched here recently, but to my knowledge, like PBNs can like continue to work. They always worked. It was just like you had to change your methods a little bit. And one of the mistakes that people made was they weren't really private blog networks. They were just blog networks, and it was kind of, all out there. And then Google could find your network because you were sharing links like me and my friends used to do. And then they would take the whole network down. It was a big mess. And Marcus says, I'm still active on Twitter, but I don't like the vibe there at all. That makes sense. But it's useful for news. Yeah, I think like all social media probably has that, where it's like use the right social media for the right thing in a way that works for you. And I try not to do it too much because it does represent a time suck, but Instagram is the social media where I'll just waste time. And typically I try to really curate for people playing guitar, pets, usually dogs doing something cool, preferably border collies, something cute with pets also, and comedy. And I enjoy sitcom clips from shows that I've already watched, like The Office, Modern Family, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's a couple others that have popped up. Community here recently. And I've already watched the show, so I could see a little clip and I'm like, that's pretty funny. I like that. So I'm trying to use it in that way, not for work in any capacity, just to waste time occasionally. But I try not to do it too much because it truly is a time suck. But if it makes me smile, that's not bad. All right. Shan says niche sites are working in 2024 because some SEO say it is difficult to rank after EEAT, helpful content, and recent core updates. Authority sites replace niche sites. You're asking if it's true. What is my opinion? So some niche sites or authority sites are still ranking. However, there have been a lot. I think I might be clipping a touch here, so I could turn that down. But let me know out there if it sounds like that to you. So basically, things have changed. And one issue is that people that have had successful sites for years, all of a sudden they're in a position where their site isn't getting as much traffic as before, and literally nothing has changed. And literally some of these people have been doing the right thing for years. And when I say right thing, I mean they have EEAT and they are doing it in the right way. Like I said, Kristen, I just published an interview with her. She had a podcast, a YouTube channel, a blog. She was part of the industry. Like, that's about all you could do. Like that's doing way more. Now the flaw, right? So she had like the bigger portion of the platform on different mediums. But the issue is it was like still very heavily reliant on Google traffic. So to answer the question, number one, niche and authority sites, they're pretty much the same thing. Think content sites. If someone is saying niche site and authority site, have them define it. There's some nuance depending on who you're talking to. But most people, like a niche site is the same as an authority site. It's just like some people have a different preconceived notion about what it is. And I'm not saying anyone is right or wrong. Just make sure you know the vocabulary that people are using. A lot of people will say like an authority site is bigger or it's a brand or whatever, but you could have a niche site that is big with a brand and an email list and digital products and all that stuff. So just make sure you understand what people are talking about. I think right now, and if you check out some of the recent videos that I've done, I'm saying it will take longer. If you're thinking, hey, I want to build a niche site, it probably will take longer to rank, and there's a high chance for a lot of volatility. And all you need to do is go ask around, right? Go ask around, go check out some Facebook groups, go to Twitter if that's your thing, ask people that you know that are a little bit ahead of you. And basically it's different than it was. Still possible. I would say that you're better off thinking about a bigger overall brand which is not completely novel, but I'm saying focus on specific platforms where you own the platform, you own the audience, you don't have the same sort of impact when Google updates come around or something like that. All right. DJ Chuck D says, do you know what demographic the new subscribers on your YouTube channel are coming from? So I haven't looked specifically. However, a lot are from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. I think the majority are probably coming from there, but I literally haven't looked super close at the data. And it also depends on the specific video too, from which they subscribed. So that makes a big difference, but a lot of them are not from the US or Canada. I do know that. And if people are interested, I published a video recently where basically my channel is roughly doubled in subscribers in the last 6 weeks or so. And don't tell anyone, but newsflash, it's just a vanity metric and it really doesn't matter that much. But I'm treating this like a game, and there's some threshold, it's 100K, where it seems very interesting, and a lot of people set that as their goal. And I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing that seems to be working pretty well, and let's check it out while it's working really well. So you could watch the video that I published the other day if you are interested in learning more about it, or leave a comment on the video, right? Leave a comment, like watch the video, leave a comment on the video to let me know. Very few people left a comment. A few people sent me an email because they did really want to know what was going on with YouTube. But yeah, if the trend continues, it'll be in less than 2 weeks, it'll be at 100K, which is crazy. I didn't think I'd keep doing it for long enough to hit 100K. Again, pure vanity metric. It literally doesn't matter. I am treating it as a game. Otherwise, it could lead to burnout, right? If you take anything too seriously, you'll burn right out. All right. Build the Niche Site says exact match domains still work too. I've heard that a lot. And the thing is, like, you have the keyword like right there in the URL. So Marcus backs it up by saying niche, it definitely does. So exact match works. I did keyword research recently, and many exact match domains rank top 10 for the keyword, surprisingly. Because apparently Google denies it. Although I thought they came through recently, like in the last few weeks, in one of their office hours things. I thought they said, yeah, actually, if you have a keyword in the domain name, you'll probably rank better. Marcus says, I checked 1,400 terms over several days and found 50 examples of that. And that sounds like a pretty good tweet that you could put out there and get a lot of attention. All right, let's go through the chat. Marcus says Amazon influencer is not only about how many followers, but how active the account is and all that stuff. Build the Niche Site says, is Kristen using Schema for her EEAT? I don't know that question. And Marcus says, I heard that Schema is not that important anymore. Not sure if that's true. Build the Niche Site says it works very well for products, especially in the sidebar where Google Knowledge Graph pulls those results. I have a question. So I never really got into Schema so much. It seems like, all right, we have these AI tools that are so great. Google has like amazing tools out there as well. why do we need to do schema? Can't it fucking figure out what information is on the page anyway? Why do you have to make it complicated? It seems ridiculous to me. Am I out of line here? Like, it makes no sense. Let me get a throat lozenge here. All right. People remember they still have them out, but it's the Luden's Originals. Do you remember these? They're so, it's like candy. It's candy. And some people might notice I do have this slightly wider angle lens on the camera today. You can see the gear that I'm using. If you scroll down and you look in the description, there's a kit.co link. And this lens that I'm using is my favorite lens. It is amazing. I get questions about it all the time. And just the fact that I we zoomed in there for a second, I just wanted to mention it because people will ask, like, man, what lens is that? So it's a Sigma 18 to 35 1.8. It's fantastic for videography and this kind of work, and to use it as a webcam. Because it goes down to 1.8, you can really blur the background. It's at 2.0 right now, and I just did that because it was a little too bright where I have the light right here. So I turned it down just a touch, and the 1.8 to 2.0 at this distance that I'm away from it, it's like one arm's length away. It's perfect. And it's a great sort of walking around lens as well. Very awesome. Highly recommend it. If this one broke, I don't think it will. It seems pretty robust. But if this one did break, I would buy another one. Definitely buy another one. Very good lenses. Really like the Sigma. I think they're Art. Yeah, they have a little A on the side. They're the whole series, and they are very high quality. They feel very sturdy, and I can't recommend them enough. All right. What else do we have here? So I will come back to the YouTube Shorts because I wrote it down on this piece of paper. But schema, let me know out there. It seems like Google should be able to figure this out without us having to do the schema. I will have an expert on schema on my new podcast, still unnamed. I have a couple names that I'm playing with. New podcast. It'll be all about SEO and marketing. However, it'll be for professionals. So directors at a company, and they're the SEO director. All the people on the SEO team, probably partially marketing team as well. Do a lot of cross-pollination between the two, of course. And we're going to go in depth on the detailed topics. Still don't have a launch date, but things are coming around. So, okay, so, and Marcus says, apparently it's not needed for how-to. So schema is not needed for how-to and FAQ anymore. And Build in the chat says, Google did an update because people were abusing the FAQs. Yeah. And the thing is, obviously, if they did an update because people were abusing the FAQs, it just, again, it doesn't make sense that Google isn't just looking at the content on the page and then should be able to figure out what's going on, especially with the advancement of all the AI tools and AI in general. Okay. DJ Chuck says that's what many people who have ran YouTube ads for subs are saying. For some reason, it's mostly non-US based subscribers that are acquired. And you can, I'm actually testing this right now. You can select where the ads are going to run. And you could dial some things in. And it's just way cheaper, right, to run ads in different countries, depending on where you're from. So some countries are cheaper, but by default, I was using the promo tab and basically just like taking the default settings, see what would happen. All right. We have one guy from Brazil, I don't know what that says exactly. We'll say Flores. Edward, great question. Do you think niche sites may come back with further Google updates? Yeah, I think so. And I think so because I don't think the results are as good for people doing research for specific things. My hunch is Google took it a little too far with the last few updates. So the results aren't as good and it's harder to find the information. And I don't know what other people think, but I don't like to go to Reddit for information. And I wonder, Google has the data on this, but I wonder if the people that do use Reddit are like a loud minority that search all the time and they were putting in their search phrase and then putting in Reddit because they just wanted to like get the Reddit result. I don't like to check out Reddit. Like very rare. There's a couple times where I may read the information there, and every time I do, I'm like, it's probably better to get the info somewhere else. That said, I think there could be updates from Google where niche sites and other sites that are not user-generated content will do better. It'll be really interesting to see how people react, because I think after all these updates in the last year and the shift with AI, there will be a lot of people that just don't have faith. Even if their site comes back, they're not going to have confidence in it moving forward for various reasons, but just having that, like knowing that fact, having the experience of having your site go down really sucks. Before I hit the next question and comment here, keep them coming. Keep them coming. If you want to be notified about these live streams and join the email list, there is a link in the description. And then I send an email usually the day of. Usually I do a live stream each week. Sometimes I take a day off, a week off. Anyway, you can sign up for the email list there. What do people think out there? Edward, I'm gonna use this for one of my polls coming up. So thanks for the idea. I'll give you a little shout out in there, so be sure to vote. All right. Chuck says, you're the man, Doug. The most honest and trustworthy creator in this make money online niche. Oh, thanks. You call the BS. Yeah, thanks. Build a Niche Site says, yeah, I always thought schema was a joke, but Google uses it for their database, and lately more of their new features use it. I believe it's also fed into Bard, but don't quote me on that. I never thought it was a joke. I just thought this is really stupid. So let me ask you this. Oh, there you go. So Duke clears it up. Schema trains AI models. Think BERT, MUM, and RankBrain. Okay. So that makes a little bit more sense. But when I peel back, all right, let's have a hypothetical situation here. Maybe Kristen is a good one, right? Kristen, who I just interviewed, she lived in a van. She lives and travels on a boat currently. She had a podcast. She had a YouTube channel, a great blog. She had the experience, the expertise, the authority, and trust. She had all the stuff. She's creating content on these different platforms. do we really want someone who's a creator and they're doing the things that they are talking about and they literally have the experience in it? Do we want them to fuck around with the schema and try to figure out how to do that? Or would we prefer that they just create the content that's really good? I contend that the content Google should be able to decipher what it is. I know I don't have a ton of experience with schema, but this one person creating content, maybe it doesn't make sense for that person to mess around with schema. And I think that's true. I didn't even want to mess around with schema, and it's probably really closely aligned with my skill set overall, but I was just like, I don't really want to do this. And Marcus says the more people that leave the space, the better it is for those who stay. And the thing is, there still will be websites and people will still search for the information. Things are shifting and changing and all of that stuff. But usually when there's a big shakeup like this, and it happens every few years, a bunch of people that are not super interested, they'll move on to something else or they'll just quit. But the people that stick around and continue to gain skills, you'll figure something out, right? Build a Niche Site says, if I need additional SEO directors, let you know. Shoot me an email. Yep. Excuse me. All right. And the Magic Flowers says that Google's main motivation for promoting schema structured data is to create better experience for both users and the search engine itself. Okay, so y'all made good points on the schema trains the AI models. It's helping create a better experience. Should the creators just focus on creating their content, or should they be trying to figure out how to use schema? Build a Niche Site says, Reddit has a bunch of negative Nancys. It's a track to dig through to find the good content. And a lot of people, they just disagree. So you're reading the nuance, and that could be useful for some things, but if you just need a quick answer, not that helpful. And Marcus says, it doesn't make sense to me that Reddit has gone up in the SERPs. A lot of bad content is listed in there now, not useful for the end user. Oh, and Build the Niche Site says, you jumped on the channel through a YouTube alert. You haven't seen those in a while, but apparently they are working again. And I don't know if they ever worked that well. People would get the notifications or emails after, way after I already started, so it really wasn't paying off. All right. And Marcus says, in the Netherlands, you don't have SGE yet. When you search for something, the whole screen is filled with ads, not user-friendly at all. Yeah, great point. So, the Magic Flowers said, Google is hey, do schema to create a better user experience for users in the search engine. And I'm not sure. It's probably easier for them to extract information, but I don't know. It's easy for me to complain about it. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Build the Niche Site says, although Google says the EEAT is important, I don't think they actually measure it. It's up there with exact match domains and PBNs. I personally have had success with adding schema, especially review schema and product schema. It's just adding a few lines of text. Apparently, so I recently saw EEAT schema, but I haven't tried it. All right. And Further, schema is like the old card catalogs in the library. You should still create good content, but guide Google on what it is. Wow, people love schema. I was wrong about this. You guys and gals really love schema. Schema should be considered an optimization step in the later phase. Helpful, unique content is the key point to concentrate on at the beginning. I was wrong. People like schema. I'm just lazy, I guess. And if people hear barking, that is Georgie dreaming back there. Let me see. I can get the... She's dreaming. Can everybody see her dreaming back there? She has all her toys. Okay, rare pause, but really important to document Georgie's dream here. Wow, the viewers really skyrocketed. People love dogs. Less talking, more dogs. All right. So Build a Niche Site says, my bad for talking too much about schema. No, I opened the door and I read the room wrong. I read the room wrong. Schema is more useful than I thought. I never got into it. And it's on my list. It's one of the top topics on my list to cover just in general, because I think a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on schema, or they take a look. And here's the other thing is, like, there have been so many things in the past that Google has tried to shove down our throat, and they just went away. Of course, some of them stick around, but you have to figure out like which ones are the important ones. And you don't know until after. Google, was it Google Plus, right? That was the next thing for a few years, and then it just totally disappeared. Remember AMP, accelerated mobile pages, which I heard a rumor. I think it was on the Tim Ferriss podcast with Matt Mullenweg. I'm pretty sure he mentioned that AMP, there was something in AMP that favored Google for like ads, for like auctioning ads. So I tried to do a little research, but I wanted to find better sources. So I shouldn't even said anything just now, but he mentioned it on the show. The point being, sometimes, and people were like, AMP is so important, like do this and do that. And I never did anything with AMP. And then eventually they scrapped it, right? So AMP is gone as far as I know, right? Is that accurate? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Leather art, what's happening? And Marcus, like me, never use schema. Google can figure out what it is without it. Although maybe not in all cases, but I guess they come pretty close. Apparently, schema does help Google figure out some stuff. However, okay, question. If schema is so good, then why and I don't know if this is accurate, but did Google do an update because people were abusing it? So if that is the case, like anything else in marketing or SEO, if it works and everyone else can do it, then people will abuse it, and then it soon will become ineffective. So was schema adopted too much and it was too effective by marketers, so then Google stopped making it so effective in certain cases? I can't remember what someone wrote in here. Okay, moving on. Back to the topic of where content sites are. I think the main idea and the thing I've tried to convey for the last few weeks is basically, if you are starting a new site, definitely go in with your eyes wide open and know that it can take a little bit longer than it used to rank. That said, there's a lot of examples or people mentioning newer sites with AI content, like outranking some older sites that have handwritten human content on there. So who knows if that will shift. The other part of this is I would plan on having a bigger platform, a bigger brand. So I would immediately think of, okay, how can this expand in the future to YouTube? Maybe you don't do YouTube right away. Maybe you do YouTube first and then you start a blog after that. You can repurpose content across the different platforms that you want to focus on. And I would say just know that there's some volatility with search traffic. So just keep that in mind so you're not surprised. Sites go up and sites go down, and sometimes it's not any specific action that you have taken or not taken, and sites come back. If your site does get hit, and this is what Kristen was talking about, I mean, she's working on certain things to improve her site, and basically she is seeing some improvement. So I think it can work. All right. Richest Domains, what's going on? Thanks for checking out the interview with Kristen. We talked about her a bunch in this live stream already. Build the Niche Site says there was an update for FAQ schema, but I'm not sure if they were using. Hold on. There was an update for FAQ, but you don't know if they were using schema. All right. Content still works as it always has. I believe it always will, as long as you have something unique and interesting to bring to the table, not rehash non-original AI spinning. And the thing is, there was, I featured it last week, Jamie IF had someone, I guess, basically copy his website, and they took the traffic from him. I don't know if he's recovered it yet or what the situation was. Someone might actually know in the chat. But basically, it not only was it just rehash, it was straight up copied, which is really weird for that to happen, right? How does that even happen? Marcus says, do you think ranking quickly on low competition keywords is still possible? Yeah, I think so. I think it also makes a difference how really just not saturated, but it makes a difference how many other websites there are in the overall market. I don't have any specific examples or data on that, but my hunch is if you did have something where you were writing more original type content on original topics where there's not where it's really, really low competition, I'm emphasizing the low competition portion, I think that is 100% true. All right. Magic Flower says, do you feel that more and more Google will shift ranking websites that provide helpful content supported by YouTube videos? I don't know. It seems like that would fit with the EEAT, the experience area. That's assuming the person or the video does have some additional experience. And I think it could be abused, right? So imagine someone just created a faceless YouTube channel. I think actually having views and actually having some interaction will help, especially if there's like a clear tie back. If the blog post is linked over to the video and vice versa, I think that would help a lot. But I think the YouTube videos can just stand alone. And if you have the two, that's great. But I think just having the YouTube video would be really good. And Marcus tries to focus on websites with a competition score of lower than a DA 30. Makes sense. Cool. What other questions do we have out there? Sounds like I definitely need to have an episode on schema. So build a niche site, do send me an email. The interesting thing is I have a couple more interviews with folks that have experienced a traffic hit from helpful content update and other updates in the fall last year. By the way, I have some interviews coming up. I've gotten several emails from people that have lost a ton of traffic. Someone emailed me today. They were making like 25 to 30K a month. Now they're making about $1,000 per month. It, I think, is potentially more devastating than what people are hearing. Just because, like, this is non-public stuff. So these are just people that I'm talking to that happen to be on the email list. And a lot of people got hit, probably way more than you realize. Again, people aren't talking about it because it's not a story that sells. It's not a story that sells keyword research tools or plugins or WordPress themes or your course or whatever. But I mean, I'm not in a Facebook group, so maybe a bunch of people are talking about it and stuff and being like transparent and honest. But usually people are not trying to get attention for their minor failures, right? So you're not hearing those stories so much. I got a handful of others coming up. If you have a story you want to share, you can shoot me an email, feedback@Doug.Show. Or if you just want to tell me about it and not be on the show, sometimes that's helpful for folks. All right. Get a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up here. To Christo says, thanks for all the tips. Should I build links after 2 months to a new domain? Sure. I mean, it's no issue that it's 2 months old. Just make sure they're good links. Don't build crappy links. And that said, there's no reason to wait for 2 months or there's no reason to wait for anything. Just get links, promote your site, but only good links. Don't get crappy guest posts. Okay, so Chuck says, where do you place the HCU updates of 2023 in rankings of all Google updates since I've been in the niche site game? Oh, interesting question. It's definitely, so I wasn't around for Panda. That was a little before my time. I think I was around for Penguin. What year was Penguin, folks? Can somebody look that up for me? When was Penguin? I think I caught Penguin. I want to say HCU may have been one of the bigger. Definitely, I would say it's definitely in the top 3. The thing is, a lot of the sites that were doing really well for years, that were doing things in air quotes right, they got hit too. So it represents like a huge amount of revenue for those people that I happen to know a lot of them. So I would say HCU is probably in the top 3 just because of that. When you put that in context with all the AI content and AI tools impacting the content site industry, then 2023 was like a huge shakeup to the point where, like, I've talked to some other course creators and stuff, and some are publishing new lessons and new blueprints. Like my friends at Authority Hacker, they put in like a lot of new content to address some of those changes. Some other tools, they have not addressed it at all. They haven't added any updates or anything like that. For my course, which is sunsetting, it needed to have AI content addressed and other tools that use AI to be included, but I didn't want to go down that route because we don't know the shelf life of the output from those tools, the AI tools specifically for content, AI tools for other pieces of the puzzle. We don't know how long that's going to last. It might work great for a long time, or it could be a major issue in a couple weeks. Like, we have no visibility on that. So I didn't feel comfortable creating a course or creating content within my existing course to cover that, because it changes every week. It's moving way too fast to create content knowing that it's going to be something that, you implement the work from the unit, and then you're like, okay, now this should work fine. And then in 3 or 4 months, it may not work. Like that doesn't make sense to me. So HCU, big impact. And I think probably someone said, did anyone tell me? Nope. Okay. Going through here. Great questions, everybody. All right. Marcus says, one more question. I have a lot of content on my to-do list. Any tips on how to not become overwhelmed by the amount of content to write? I'm at the starting point and it seems like a lot. So you can only do them one at a time. So one thing that's helpful to keep from getting overwhelmed, it of course doesn't change the sheer amount that you're writing, but separate it into different phases or sections, however you need to do that. And you could prioritize what you're working on and change it into bite-sized pieces. So instead of looking at 120 articles that you need to write, break it down into like monthly and then weekly, and then probably weekly is good enough. That's small enough for you to do, where you just keep moving forward on the smaller amount. When you break it into phases, say 3 to 5 phases, then you end up with a smaller unit that isn't as overwhelming. You could ignore everything else that is not in the unit that you're working on and just make progress on that one thing, that one segment that you were focusing on, and then move on after that once you're finishing things along the way. So that is really helpful. I'm writing a book with my friend. He and I have gone through phases of like working on it a lot and then not very much. We're picking it back up, and we actually were writing right before I got this. So we're going to have to figure a few things out just in general, but it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And we want to do an audio book too, right? So we're writing it individually, then we're going to edit it together and kind of figure out how to meld things and make that work. People have asked, how is it writing with another person? I'm like, I don't know. We're writing individually so far. So you have that, there's the marketing, there's other promotion, there's an audio book. We're self-publishing it. So there's a lot of stuff that is overwhelming, but we're just breaking it down like one step at a time. Chuck says the devastation of many legit niche sites is crazy. Agree 100%. And Build the Niche site is talking about getting a DA30 domain to a DA70. And a lot of people were like, hey, tell me about that. I guess you have 2 topics you could tell me about. So the quick summary is a 302 and then 301 redirects. I have a blueprint, might do a course on it soon. Yep. Yeah, so people would definitely buy that course. People love those metrics. All right. Victory says, I started a home and garden website 8 months ago now. I'm not getting enough clicks, but my impressions are very high. Some days I get 4 clicks. What should be the problem I write without AI? So tough question to answer. Number one, actually just baseline. Whatever I'm telling you might not be helpful at all. Right? Keep that in mind. It's virtually, people that have watched this a lot, it's virtually impossible to give the right advice on this. So keep that in mind. That's the disclaimer. This is potentially not helpful at all. Number one, you might be doing everything right. What might be the problem? There might not be a problem. You might be doing everything perfectly. 2, it could be your content quality. That's a common thing. It could be your keywords. Maybe your keywords suck. Maybe your keywords are great and the content's great, but maybe it's too competitive. That covers most things and unfortunately gives you no direction. So, not helpful. You probably should find a friend who's further along than you that has done this before and ask them. Have them look at your site. It may or may not be helpful. It's really hard to tell. All right. Marcus says that is the approach that you're following where you try to break down a big task into something smaller. It just seems like I can't do more than 100 or 150 articles in a year and the list is way too long. The other thing you can do is change the scope. So you can lower the quality to write it faster. You can make them shorter. You could do less research and just spend less time on it. So you probably don't want to go down on the quality too much, but if you could lower the quality a little bit and make it a little bit shorter, then you might be able to publish, 30, 50% more than that. So if you change the scope, you can change your output. And of course, you can outsource a portion of it to just move faster, but depending on the part that you're outsourcing, it may or may not have a very clear ROI. Okay, and Build a Niche Site says if you're getting impressions but no clicks, then your titles and meta description aren't encouraging to viewers to click on the website, that's a great point. I didn't think about that. So the way I read this question, very interesting. So good call, Build a Niche Site. When you say my impressions are very high some days, I don't know what that is. So you're telling me 4 clicks. Some days you get 4 clicks. So unless we know what very high is, very high, you might mean 14, or you could mean like 14,000. So how many impressions are you actually getting? All right. Cool. So we'll wait for Victory to get back to us. But yeah, if you are actually getting a lot of impressions, then potentially your titles are not great. Credit to Build a Niche Site for that insight. We got a couple cool interviews coming up. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to check it out. Let me pull up my Trello board here and I'll tell you. We do have an update from Denise coming pretty soon. When is that coming up? That's coming in a couple weeks. I have a friend named Amberly Grant, and she's been on my other show several times. It's called Mile High Fi. And we're going to talk about launching a podcast in general, FAQs about like building a brand and that sort of thing. Then in a few weeks, I have an interview from Elaine Eason. And she's a serial entrepreneur, really. She's been building websites since she was in high school. And she built a brand, turned it into a drop shipping site. She didn't have any experience with drop shipping, but she's like slowly leveled up her skills and then had a pretty major exit. So got some pretty cool interviews coming up. Got Amberly coming up next week, next Monday. We got Denise, who's been on the channel several times over talking about her site. The thing is, helpful content, that update essentially killed traffic on Denise's site. She's still earning some money, but she was aiming for a great growth trajectory, and then helpful content got in the way again. So she's pivoting. She's doing something a little bit different. And then Elaine coming up in a couple weeks. So got some cool updates. All right. Well, thanks everybody for popping on. I'm going to get out of here. Please do check out the other videos. Leave a comment. Leave comments on videos. It really helps it out. You can say something about the video. You can make a random comment. It'll be like an inside joke between you and I. And don't forget, I'm actually going to use one of the comments earlier, a great question from, let me find it, on the community tab. I'm going to be putting more stuff on the community tab. I just have to find the question. It was pretty early. But there's a question that I want y'all to answer. I think he only left one comment, so I'm trying to find it. We're in too deep. Okay. Edward. It was Edward. I don't even know if Edward's still on, but I'm going to put this in the community tab. Do you think niche sites and content sites may come back with further Google updates in 2024? I'm going to put that as a poll. Please respond to it. Edward, you have to vote. All right. It's your question. You're going to get a shout out. So please vote for that one, and we'll catch y'all next week.